Hello, and thank you for watching episode 2 of the On the Verge baseball card show. I'm your host, Bob Found, and with me, as always, is Fernando Delgado. How are you doing, Fernando?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited. It's a super exciting time to be an Orioles fan in general, and also as a collector of baseball cards. It's super cool to see a lot of the prospects coming up that we've been waiting on, and grabbing their cards or enjoying the cards that we've got of those players that we picked up over the past couple of years, and then the players that we've traded for recently. It was a big trade deadline for the Orioles, and just a lot of good young talent that's coming up and that we just added. So then, of course, the Major League Baseball draft. I think the Orioles had an awesome draft, top to bottom. Picked up the number one draft pick, and I think we made a great pick with that one, and so just tons of talent coming in. So it's exciting.
Yeah, a lot has changed since our first episode about 6 weeks ago. The Orioles are in playoff contention all of a sudden. There's a lot of new players in the system, some players, familiar faces gone. We'll get to all of that. We will talk about the MLB draft, as you talked about, and how that affects the hobby here, and what are some new guys we might be collecting, we might be seeing once Bowman Draft comes out at the end of the year. Of course, the MLB trade deadline came and went, and Trey Mancini and Jorge Lopez were traded away, but got a bunch of new prospects coming in. We'll talk about that. We also have some major league debuts from Taron Vavra and DL Hall, and maybe we might be a day away from another one with Gunnar Henderson. We shall see, but we'll get into all that. And let's start with the MLB draft. That was about 2 months ago now. It seems like, no, when was that? Was it beginning of July? It gets later and later every year, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it might have been towards the
middle of July.
Yeah, or maybe the middle of
July. Right
July.
around the All-Star break. But yeah, so Bowman Draft, of course, always comes out around end of the year, December. And it's one of the most expensive and one of my favorite baseball card boxes that come out each year. What do you think about that product, and how do you think it's gonna look for Orioles fans this year?
I mean, I think it is a great product now more than ever. I think it's one of the kind of premier sets that prospectors obviously chase. Almost everyone that's drafted in the MLB draft every year. Most of the first and second rounders usually wind up in Bowman Draft. There's usually a couple holdovers. I think traditionally the number 2 pick typically gets held back until the following year's Bowman, just the regular Bowman release. So that probably will be the case again this year. So that would be Drew Jones, I believe. And maybe they'll hold back the number 3 or the number 4 pick, but Jackson Holliday, the Orioles number 1 pick and number 1 overall, should be in the product. So that should be really exciting for Orioles fans. And the first 4 selections the Orioles made were all hitters. So there's a good chance all 4 will be in 21 Bowman draft, or I'm sorry, 22 Bowman draft. And so that should be, maybe one of the best sets for Orioles fans in a long time. Obviously 2019 Bowman draft was pretty epic because that featured Adley Rutschman, the number 1 overall pick, and then Gunnar Henderson, who is, according to several publications, the current number 1 pick. And that's extremely rare to have 2 players of that caliber, in the same draft class for any team. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the set in general is going to be, really chased by baseball card collectors, and then Orioles fans, just as much so.
Yeah, and not to mention Kyle Stowers in that 2019 set, who just came up this past week as well. So yeah, that was monumental. And when I look at these things, I'm one of these box breakers who does pick your teams, and my wallet's hurting just thinking about how much I'm gonna have to pay to grab the Orioles in one of these box breaks, because man, they're gonna have Jackson Holliday, number 1 overall pick, shortstop, dynamic high school player, Dylan Beavers, a power hitting outfielder, Max Wagner, power hitting third baseman, and Judd Fabian, an electric center fielder prospect out of Florida. I think all 4 of those guys should easily be in this product, and then might see one more from the later rounds, like a Carter Young, who signed for $1.3 million despite being selected in the 16th round. Maybe Trace Bright as a lone pitcher in there. I think he was the top selected pitcher that signed. Any other guys down in the draft that you would be excited to see pop up in the product?
So I mean, you hit on all the pretty big names. I think that I mean, just to touch upon one of the names that you did mention, so Judd Fabian, I think Orioles fans have to be pretty excited about his pretty hot start. Um, a lot of people are concerned about, he kind of had a low batting average in college, and obviously the Red Sox drafted him last year. He didn't sign. Word was the Orioles really wanted him and were going to take him. But thankfully, or fortunately for the Orioles at least, or for Mike Elias, he wanted him badly again this year to the point where they drafted him. And I think so far they've been validated. I think that they probably saw some tools that they really liked. He's a premium defender, has really good plate discipline, or at least a really good eye. And so far he looks, comfortable at his current level. So, we'll see. It's only been a few games, so we can't really read too much into it, but it's definitely good to see. But yeah, some of the later picks, I mean, Carter Young, I think I was personally surprised that he signed. For a while, it looked like he was, unlikely to sign. And he even might have said he was, transferring and going back to college. So that is, kind of exciting. It's maybe like a high risk, high reward kind of player for the Orioles. And therefore also, if he does get into 2022 Bowman Draft, he could also be an interesting prospect for collectors. But yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the guys. There were a couple of guys that got away that we didn't sign. I think Walters, the reliever.
Yep, Andrew Walters out of Miami. Nolan McLean, 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, McLean looked that was a little bit of a bummer that he decided to go back to school too. But Zachary Showalter, we did sign him. I think he might be the guy that I'm really excited about as maybe a little bit of an under the radar guy. And I don't know if he'll be in 2022 draft, but whenever, he winds up having a card, I might go after a few cards of his.
Yeah, I hear that. He's an exciting high school arm, which the Orioles don't often go after in the draft, at least so far in Mike Elias's tenure. But yeah, it should be exciting. Fabian, I think he's got 7 doubles and a home run already between the FCL and Delmarva. He's hitting the ball with authority consistently. Clearly, they like this guy from over a year now, and they finally got him. They must know what they want to do with him, and immediately got down to seeing if they can set those improvements in place. But before we switch to MLB, the trade deadline, I think Bowman Chrome will be out before Bowman Draft sometime in the fall. And usually there's a new international face or two in there. Do you think the Orioles will have any representation on that front?
I mean, I hope we might have mentioned this on the kind of first segment that we did, but Samuel Basallo, I think
that's right. We did.
I would really hope that he's in it, and if he is, I definitely would want to pick up a bunch of cards of his, and hopefully he's got an autograph in there. But yeah, I mean, it can be tough to figure out like who Bowman's going to include and not include. But yeah, I think that would be the top name that we would want to hope for in 2022 Bowman Chrome, and then maybe a few other names later on. But I mean the Orioles kind of prospects number 15 to 30, quite frankly might be stronger than some organizations top 10 or 15. So it will be interesting to see like the guys that don't have a first yet, those international guys, if Bowman adds any of those to the next Bowman Chrome release.
Yeah, Basayo, since we've talked, he's had a great FCL season. Season ends tomorrow as we're recording this, and he's got an OPS near 800 as a 17-year-old until just last week. He turned 18. And Michael Hernandez would be another guy, but he's had a pretty disappointing season, but still very young. We should see. And then one other guy I think that's just blown up on the radar since our last year's Frederick Bencosme, who's been lighting it up, adding like 350 in Delmarva. I would love to see him get a card. If not this year, then at some point, because, man, he's exciting to watch.
Yeah, Hernandez was a big bonus and kind of a big name when the signings were announced. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was in 2022 Bowman Chrome. But yeah, Bencosme would be really cool to see. And just how many Orioles, wind up in the release with firsts. I really wouldn't want to speculate on how many, but it'll be interesting to see who winds up in the release.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Creed Willems got one in this past iteration of the regular Bowman, even though I mean, it was autograph only, but was still cool to see. And he's been doing a little bit better. Sorry about that. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. And as we shift gears now to the trade deadline, I'm sure there's a lot of Orioles fans, baseball card collectors who are upset to see Trey Mancini go, or even not baseball card collectors upset to see Trey Mancini go. What were your thoughts on that trade, and does that affect your collection at all? I know I had quite a few Mancini cards sitting around, and I'm like, oh, now what do I do with these?
Yeah. So as an Orioles fan, I think a lot of people would agree that as great of a guy as Trey Mancini is, and as great of a hitter that he is, that he doesn't necessarily fit into the long-term plans of the team. He's going to be getting a lot more expensive. I believe he had a player option for next year, which I think he would have declined because he would be able to get a lot more money. And I just think that Trey even knew in a lot of his interviews, even going back to the beginning of the season, but especially as things got closer to the trade deadline, he basically knew, and he was probably told by Mike Elias that he was likely to get traded. And I think he was fine with it. I think most of the team probably was aware of that. And, he was traded to a contender, maybe the favorite in the AL East, to make it to the World Series, and if not win the World Series. So I think that the trade overall, was a win-win for both the Astros and especially for the Orioles, because it's not really realistic to re-sign Trey Mancini for how much he was going to cost, and then just the amount of prospects that we have coming up that we're going to need room for. He just didn't fit the long-term plan. So, I personally, while I'm disappointed because, Trey's also a great personal story, his, beating cancer, and, he generally seems like a great guy, loved by all of his teammates and really active in the community. Houston's getting a great hitter and a great person. But in the end, I think the organization is going to be, better off for making the trade. So yeah, I'm happy overall with how things are, with that trade. And it was also kind of sad to see Jorge Lopez go too. Obviously, there's a little bit less attachment there, I think, because his first year or season, as a starter didn't really go all that well, and I think everybody could tell that he had good stuff, but he couldn't really last through 5 innings or second, third time through the batting order. So him being converted to a closer was a great move. He had a phenomenal year, and it was also tough to see him go because he seems like a quality person as well. But I just think that, for that kind of return, if Cade Povich pans out as a, mid rotation or late rotation starter as a lefty with good stuff, I can see why Michael Elias decided to pull the trigger on that trade as well. So yeah, in the end, it's a little bit disappointing. But I think when you look at the prospects that we got in return, I think it's definitely a great situation for the Orioles.
Yeah, especially the Trey Mancini trade. I feel like I was not expecting as good a return as we got as I pulled up Seth Johnson's card here, one of his first Bowman autographs. He was the prize of the deal. It was a 3-way trade between Tampa Bay and Houston. He got Tommy John surgery like the day after we acquired him, but we wouldn't have acquired him if he wasn't getting Tommy John because he is a legit pitching prospect who immediately is right on the borderline of our top 10. And it's a pretty good farm system as a lot of the midseason updates came out, and the Orioles were pretty much the top farm system across the board. And there was also from the Houston Astros, Chase McDermott, as I will pull that up as well. And he is another big time righty who actually has gotten in some games and performed pretty well. His Bowie debut didn't go exactly according to plan. He got hit for like two home runs, I think, but he would look pretty good in his short time at Aberdeen. Fastball plays, got a lot of hop, and the breaking stuff was pretty filthy as well. He's just got to learn to command the ball a little bit better. So to get 2 fairly high-end pitchers return for a DH that's going to be a free agent in 2 months seemed like a pretty fair deal from the Orioles side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually am pretty high on Chase McDermott, and especially from the card collecting perspective, because you could probably pick up, refractors of his for like $1. And it's not the type of player that, you're going to make big money on or anything like that. But if you just enjoy collecting, you can get a lot of different, parallels like that sapphire. Is that which
This is
parallel?
250 purple to
Oh, nice,
250. Yeah,
cool.
it wasn't much. It wasn't too
Yeah, you
much.
probably didn't pay a ton for it.
No.
But his strikeout rate is pretty like off the charts. Just ballparking it, I think he's up in the 14 to 15 Ks per 9 innings for a couple of his recent seasons. And that to me like reminds me of like Josh Hader's strikeout rate coming up and in the majors. And he also had control problems coming up. So I trust Mike Elias and the minor league development staff to work with McDermott and get those walks under control. And if he does, I mean, I think he's at worst a lights out closer or setup man. So to get someone like Seth Johnson and then McDermott on top of that, I think is a great return, especially considering the Orioles were before the trade deadline and before the draft, they were super hitter heavy, and they were lacking a lot of depth, in the minor league system with their pitching prospects. So I think Elias went, all in, with the second half of the draft and with the trade deadline, just picking up as many pitching prospects as possible. And I think our whole organization's in a lot better shape for it.
Yeah, that's a good shout because, we're known for taking college hitters or just hitters in general for the most part when it comes to the draft. But when you look at the trades he's made, Mike Elias and company, it's been 4 pitchers a lot of the time. Like the Dylan Bundy trade was for 4 pitchers. Jose Iglesias, we got Gene Pinto and Garrett Stalling. So he likes to get guys in that I guess they have more data on, or maybe he just feels like if he can trade for them a little bit after, they first come to professional ball, they can maybe stay healthier or get to the majors faster. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be the direction they like to go. And another pitcher they got was Cade Povich, who you mentioned earlier in the Jorge Lopez trade. And he could probably end up being the best of the bunch out of the guys that we got back in these trades. Michael Elias called him a potential top of the rotation arm talent. I know he was pretty far down on the Twins list, but I think that was before the midseason updates. And Carly McDaniel of ESPN even had in his recent, I think it was last week, he did his updated top 50, and he put that Cade Povich was amongst the other players who recorded a 50 grade, and that would put him in the top 125 overall in baseball, which was pretty surprising to me to read that, but not surprising that Elias targeted a guy with helium, big lefty arm, who has had velocity increase lately. And, we saw DL Hall make his major league debut, and we'll get to that in a minute, but maybe Povich could be a mix between Drew Rom and DL Hall and be a decent lefty arm.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, when I first read about the return, just reading Twitter and ESPN, I was a little bit underwhelmed by the return for Jorge Lopez. To be honest, I kind of preferred trading Dylan Tate. I would have rather traded Tate to get that return, maybe. But then the more I looked into it, I think Povich really could be, the big piece in this trade. And then, looking more into it, and obviously Povich had a couple really great starts, with the Orioles, like since being acquired. And now I kind of think that the trade could be, just great value for the Orioles. Even if a couple of the other pitchers, the young pitchers that came back, don't pan out. But if Povich pans out, and if anyone else in that deal pans out, I think it's an awesome trade, because the other thing is that Jorge Lopez has kind of found money for the Orioles. He was a waiver claim, so that's as close to free or low risk as you can get in terms of an acquisition. And we turned him into 4 pitchers that, to be honest, any one of them could kind of turn out to be like him in a way, like a high leverage, late inning reliever. Except Povich profiles as a potential. Elias believes he could be a top of the rotation starter, and he hasn't been proven wrong yet. His first couple starts were pretty lights out. He's got great stuff, and he's really projectable. So he could rise up pretty quickly through the farm system. And, who knows? I mean, maybe he could make, start for the Orioles as soon as late next season or 2024. So yeah, I'm actually a lot more excited about this. Even before he made his first Orioles minor league start, the more I read on him, I was like, yeah, this could be wind up being a really nice trade as well.
Yeah, and the results so far have been great. His 2 starts he got in high A Aberdeen were lights out. Stuff looked electric. He also got promoted to Double A Bowie along with Chase McDermott, and he pitched really well in his first start. Gave up 2 runs over 5 innings with 6 strikeouts. So great start for him, and add him to the pile of incredible prospects in this deep farm system that we love to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super exciting just to keep track of all these guys, and it's really unprecedented for me as an Orioles fan. And I've only been back into collecting for a little over a year now, but I follow the Orioles pretty religiously, if you want to call it that, and I just never have seen or remembered a farm system this deep. It's never really been like that, at any point since I've been alive, really. Um, and it's just so exciting because, we've got prospects coming up that, there's not going to be a place for them, and we might have to trade them, which is a great problem to have. We're going to be able to hopefully, if things pan out, obviously not every prospect's going to pan out no matter how good they are performance wise in the minors, and there's going to be injuries and other things that we can't predict, but just the sheer number of high quality talented prospects that we have, I think we're going to be in great shape for the next 5 to 10 years, which is exactly what Mike Elias has been saying and what he set out to do when he first came here. So it's just really awesome to see, and I've never seen it before like this.
Yeah, completely agree. I haven't seen it either. And, so far so good. Adley came up, struggled for 3 weeks, and now he looks like a MVP candidate ever since then. So it looks like we might have found our cornerstone. Hopefully we can lock him up long term. But we also saw some more debuts since our last show, which we can get into now. I think first up was DL Hall, who he came in for one spot start in Tampa Bay. You could tell the nerves were running through him. He only was hitting like 93, 94 in the first inning, but then struck out the side in the second inning, got the ball up to 97. And we know he can even throw harder than that. Um, they sent him back down with the mission to come back in a couple of weeks as a reliever just to manage his innings and get him to help the bullpen, down the stretch. What did you think of his debut, and what do you think of his prospects long term after seeing him in a major league game?
Yeah, I mean, Hall's obviously been a highly ranked prospect for the Orioles for a couple of years now, a few years, and so it was exciting that he finally got the call. It's great to see that he stayed healthy this whole year and was making starts consistently. Obviously, the big concern with him, I think, is just the control. He does tend to walk a lot of guys, and he's also one of those pitchers, I think, that a lot of minor league hitters just can't really square up on him. So they're going to be whiffing a lot and then, taking at other times. So that can be, partially responsible for the high number of walks. Like some hitters just don't really have much of a shot to make contact, which overall is, I think a good thing. But, we saw some of those control issues in his debut. I was a little disappointed that, Hyde didn't have Adley Rutschman catching him. I think that was a mistake. I understand why they gave Adley a day off, but DL Hall's thrown to Adley in the past. I think Adley calls a much better game than Robinson Chirinos, and just he's a better framer. He's a better defensive catcher. I think he's better with the staff. Just on a personal level. So I think that might have been a little bit of a missed opportunity. But end result, it wasn't an awesome debut, but I'm glad that he got that out of the way. And I think that he can help the team, as a reliever out of the bullpen during the stretch run. I don't know in how many more days he's eligible to come back up, but hopefully we do see him. And I think it'd be great to get him some more major league experience and some confidence. And as long as he can stay healthy, again, I do, unlike years past, the Duquette regime and even the Andy McPhail regime, I wouldn't have trusted our pitching coaches at the major league level or minor league level to really help a guy with control issues. We saw that with Jake Arrieta. He could never get the control part of it down with our coaching staff, but he did with the Cubs. But I think that now it's kind of the complete opposite for us. I think Austin Voth is an example of our analytics and our coaching just kind of working wonders with pitchers. So I think we can help unlock DL Hall, or just help get those walks under control. And the talent's there. So that's exciting. Even if for whatever reason, he doesn't pan out, or maybe he's more of a reliever, because of the trades that we've made and some of the pitchers that we've drafted and some of the pitchers we're developing, I think we'll be in good shape, even if he doesn't, turn out to be the exact guy we think he is.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We talked about that on the Verge on our show, that why not set it up so that Adley would catch him. I mean, they
Yeah,
good friends, they have rapport. That's some pretty heavy duty stuff coming at Chirinos, who has never called him a day in his life. So
right.
yeah, that might have been a mistake, but I'm sure Adley will catch DL Hall plenty of times the end of this year and a lot of years moving forward, hopefully. But yeah, I think worst case he's a lights out reliever. I think maybe worst case is a Tanner Scott type reliever, but let's not sink that
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
Maybe more of a Josh Hader type. But
Yeah,
I'm not giving up on him as a starter.
Yeah.
He's got great stuff. You just saw in July in AAA how lights out he was for like 4 or 5 starts straight, where no one could touch him at all. So if he gets his control anywhere near under control, then I think he will be a big arm for a long time for this team. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next debut, who was a guy who fans were calling for him to come up, and he finally did. And then he wasn't getting a ton of playing time, but then he finally started getting some at bats, and he was taking a lot of walks, having good at bats, and he was getting his fair share of hits. And that's Terrin Vavra, who is just coming back from paternity leave after congratulations to him and his wife on having a baby over the weekend. But he can play second base, he can play the outfield. He's been DHing, but really he's just a great hitter. Not going to give you much power, but he'll walk and he will slap the ball into the outfield. What did you think of his debut, and do you have any of his cards?
Yeah, I have a few. Like I have a couple low end autographs and a few like just base refractors of his. I love Vavra as a hitter, and I was super excited when he was finally called up, and kind of figured that he'd be the first of the wave of call ups that we were going to have at the end of the season. But I just love his approach at the plate. He's very disciplined. He's got a great eye. He'll work counts. He'll draw walks. He's more of a line drive, kind of gap to gap hitter. But I love those kinds of hitters. And to be honest, I think that the Orioles, again, from the Dan Duquette era, the Andy McPhail era, and before that, we just never have had a lot of guys with great plate discipline. And Vavra and Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, when he's promoted, they're super selective, high on base percentage guys, which is what I've been hoping we would have. And I think that's going to be a hallmark of the next several Orioles teams, is really patient hitters that work the count, draw walks, and really, put starting pitchers through the ringer. And, his first couple games and his first few at bats, I can't remember if it was his first, second, third game, but I remember Vavra had, an at bat. I think it was in the 9th inning, and I think we might have wound up losing the game like 3-2. And I can't remember who it was against, but I just remember he was down in the count. It might have been like 0-2 or 1-2, wound up working it back to 3-2, and then he drew a walk. And it was a super high pressure situation, and I just loved seeing it. And it's those little things that I appreciate, that make me excited about different kinds of hitters that we have coming up. And he's just a different breed. Like even guys like Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes, Jorge Mateo, like a lot of the guys that have been around for a couple of years, they're more free swingers. And a lot of the Orioles sluggers from the past 10, 20 years also kind of free swingers. So it's just really refreshing to see. And I'm super excited. I know that Odor is still getting a lot of regular starts, I guess because of his leadership and defense. But I'm hoping that Vavra starts getting a lot more time at second base. He's been DHing, but I think that if Gunnar Henderson gets called up soon, that really changes the equation across the board for the lineup. Because I think if you bring Gunnar up, he's got to play every day or close to every day. And I think he's probably going to play third base, which would either move Ramon Urias to second, or Vavra, I think ideally would become a more regular second baseman. But so far Hyde and Elias, I guess, just have not been willing to cut bait or at least bench, Odor. So, we'll see what happens. That'll be interesting to see over the next few days and the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Terran Vavra, I'm a big fan. I love his hitting style, and I just hope he stays healthy.
Yeah, it is interesting. You can kind of just see a clear delineation between the previous regime and this regime, which players were brought in by which, because like you said, Austin Hayes, Ryan Mountcastle, even Cedric Mullins. I mean, he walks a little bit more than those guys, but
Yeah,
he's pretty free swinger as well. But then Adley comes up, Terran Vavra comes up, like you said, Gunnar Henderson is the same way. He's gonna have great swing decisions. He's gonna take his share walks. He's only gonna swing at his pitches. And same as the guy that came up over this past weekend, who he's known as a free swinger as far as striking out, but he's got big power and he also walks 11 to 12% of the time in the minor leagues, at least. So hopefully that will translate. But Kyle Stowers came up and the Orioles were struggling on offense. They bring him up. They score 15 runs in his, home debut. Of course, he struck out 4 times last night, but we won't talk about that. But Kyle Stowers is just another one of these guys, top 10 prospect. Looked like he should have been up as soon as Mancini was traded, but they waited another week or two with the guy we traded for. We didn't even talk about Brett Phillips, gone too soon or too long. I don't know. It depends who you're asking. But yeah, Kyle Stowers comes up. And what did you think of his weekend?
Well, obviously I guess his first game on that homestand right after promotion. Obviously he came up during that Toronto series much earlier in the year. It was like a COVID exception. So he wasn't technically on the 40-man roster earlier for those few games. But, I'm a huge fan of Stowers. I think that he's got – sorry, give me 1 sec. 1 sec, sorry.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't make his – you keep wanting to say he made his debut this weekend, but he did have those 4 games where he only played 2 of them in Toronto, where he got his first major league hit out of the way. He got his first major league double out of the way. But this weekend he did record his first RBI. He also had 2 RBI groundouts, golden sombrero last night, but they were feeding him curveballs, and Fernando's back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Had a UPS delivery or Amazon. But yeah, so I was going to say, with Stowers, I thought he had a great, first game where he had a couple hits. Then he had a couple of RBIs, I think pinch hit RBIs, the second game. And then obviously last night, wasn't the best, but I will say, I think he took a couple of those counts full, which, that even when you strike out, as long as you're seeing a lot of pitches, that's what I like to see. And I think Stowers will be another one of those guys. Like, I think the effects of having Stowers, Vavra, Adley, Gunnar Henderson over time is just going to make our offense so much better because we're just going to be wearing pitchers down with their pitch counts, and they're going to be hitting their pitches and hitting for power. So even though Stowers, he's a high strikeout guy, but he walks enough and his power is really legit. I think it's always possible that he doesn't tap into the power at the major league level. That happens a lot with different prospects, but I think that he will, hit for good power. And I think overall he's going to be a really productive player, or at least I hope. But, I'm really excited about Stowers too.
Yeah, I think his 2 hits on Friday, one was 106 miles per hour, one was 107 miles per hour. Line drives up the middle, so get a little bit of loft on that. And his first at bat just missed the home run.
He almost hit a home run. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool to see. And there's more hitters like that to come. Colton Cowser, even Jordan Westberg, a lot of the guys that Elias and company have brought in are that same kind of, going to give you good at bats, take their walks, and also hit the ball hard when they do swing at the pitches that they get.
Yeah, absolutely. And one guy that's maybe a little bit more of a fringe prospect right now, but that's shown a lot of plate discipline is John Rhodes. And I'm kind of excited about him too. I hope, he keeps progressing, up the system, and, we'll see what happens, over the next couple of years with him. But yeah, I think that it's clear that Elias really values on base percentage, like heavily, and a good eye, good plate discipline. And, we're seeing the effects of that, with our picks, but then also that's translated. And Cowser's, really exciting because he might be the best of the whole bunch in terms of just pure on base percentage, drawing walks. And so if you have him at the top of your lineup or towards the middle with all those other guys that we're talking about, I mean, you have the potential for just a great offense. And so I'm just super excited about that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But let's get into all the other baseball card stuff we've been collecting or want to talk about. There's been a lot of delays, I feel like, lately. Um, it seemed like the baseball card market was going along pretty well throughout the pandemic, but it seems like Stadium Club got delayed. I know a couple other collections got delayed as well. The past month or two has been pretty quiet, so I haven't done too much collecting. Before we get to your exciting, super exciting, I would say, even card that you're going to show off, I did a throwback break to a 2019 Gypsy Queen. I got a Cedric Mullins rookie card for GQ. I also bought speaking of the MLB draft this past year, Carter Young autograph for Onyx. I mean, it's Onyx, but I just thought it was a cool looking card. And then I just did a random break as well and got a couple cool cards. I got a Sixter Sanchez rookie autograph, even though I feel like he hasn't pitched in 3 years. Jorge Guzman autograph. I guess he's a reliever. It's a rookie. I got a George Springer picture variation from the tops, and then Gavin Conticello, Arizona Diamondbacks prospect, first autograph in a break. So
Nice.
that's what I got. Anything you got to show off here?
Yeah, well, one thing that I wanted to share is the Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, 2019 Bowman Draft franchise futures dual autograph. It's the Superfractor 1/1. So I'll show it here, and hopefully people can see it a little bit. There's a little bit of a glare, but I'm gonna pull it up. Yeah, so that's the card. It's actually prepped for grading. And we're going to send it into PSA. Like me and a few friends bought the card together, and looks like it's in great shape. So we're hoping it gets a PSA 10, and then at that point, we'll see if we sell it or if there's any interest in the card. But it is super cool piece to have. And when we bought the card, Gunnar was way more of an unknown prospect because we bought this over a year ago. And I'll do a screen share real quick just to get a clear view. Hopefully this works here. And let's see.
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for a cooler card than that. It's the former #1 overall prospect with the current #1 overall prospect, Superfractor 1/1. The two guys that are going to lead the Orioles back to the promised land. Very cool stuff here.
Yeah. And so going back to when we bought it, over a year ago, Gunnar was still, outside the top 100, and his first, couple stops at each level last year, he struggled a little bit, but then, he got acclimated and started performing really well. But when he was drafted, I just really had, a great, I thought that he was going to pan out for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just a gut feeling or, just what I read about him makeup wise and his production, even though it was just the high school level, I thought that we had a steal on our hands. And because of that, I kind of got back into collecting. Like I mentioned to you last time, on the first segment or episode that, Gunnar really got me back into collecting. And, me and a couple of my high school friends who are, from the Baltimore area. So it was that kind of hunch, I guess, or premonition or whatever you want to call it. Hey, we really believe in Gunnar. Let's pick up some Gunnar Henderson first autographs and first refractors, stuff like that. But then this card was available on eBay. We wound up tracking down the seller of it on Facebook, and then we made an offer on the card and we bought it. And then, since then, Gunnar's just kind of skyrocketed up the prospect rankings, and he's basically the consensus #1. He's not. I don't think he's #1 on MLB Pipeline, but several of the other big publications, he's #1 or #2. So it is pretty awesome. As an Orioles fan and as a collector, to see two guys like that are both #1 prospects or just impact players or potential impact players. So it is kind of a cool time. And before we started up this stream, I mentioned it's good timing because we just had the card prepared for grading. So I'm sending it off tomorrow to PSA. And it's possible that Gunnar is up tomorrow, that he's promoted. So I guess it's kind of fitting, or it's at least cool timing. And I'm excited to see what happens. And I think that the future of our franchise, like the card says, isn't really good hands. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's very symbolic to have 1/1 with two number one prospects. Very cool. And I know there's some debate as far as what to do with a one of one superfractor because, do you get it graded because it is already one of one? Does it matter what it's graded for? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's definitely there's kind of two schools of thought. Like, well, there's no other card like it, literally, so it's going to command that premium. I think that if the card's in great shape, like this one is, it's worth it to get it graded, because if it does grade a 10, I think it just only helps the value. And I think the number one reason is if you're trying to trade the card or sell the card to someone online that can't see it in person, they're just going to have a lot more peace of mind that they're getting a card in excellent condition.
Yeah.
That there's no surface issue that's not able to be seen on photos on eBay or whatever. Also, really quick story about the Jason Dominguez superfractor. I actually know, not well, but just online on Facebook, I know the guy that hit it in a break.
Mhm.
So kind of talk about a life-changing card. Um, the guy's name, I think, is John. I'll just use his first name, but John, I took the Yankees in a break a few months ago, hit the superfractor, and he sent it into PSA, and it got a 10. And then, PSA promoted that fact, which
Mhm.
that always helps. And then he put it up for auction on Golden, I believe. And I think that it sold for 200 some thousand, maybe more. That's just
Yeah, it was a
up.
lot.
It's definitely, I would say, life-changing money for most people. And
Yeah.
I think that he made the right decision to get it graded and, to take the risk to get that PSA 10.
Yeah, and I guess worst case, if you get it back into 8.5, you just crack it, right? Crack it
Yeah.
open and sell it raw again.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're hoping that's not going to happen. And I
Right.
feel like they'll be lenient when it's a one of one, maybe even.
Hopefully.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that
You
looks
never
very
know.
clean. So
Yeah, it does, looking in person, but it wouldn't be the first time that a card that looks like it's in great shape, winds up getting a 9 or an 8, or, sometimes it just depends on the grader, and sometimes the grader might have a bad day. So you just never know.
yeah, yeah, I've never graded a card through PSA, and actually, there are a couple. I don't have anything crazy, but I would like to eventually do that. So, what would you recommend I do? Take it to a card store and let them walk me through it, or go online and try to send one in myself?
I would recommend go if you have a card store near you that you trust. Maybe the owner or some of the employees there. I'd recommend doing that. I also, I can connect you with a friend in particular that I have who actually helped, prepare the card for me. His name's Adam Gertz, but he sets up at shows a lot around here. Just great guy, really trustworthy. But he's a great resource because he'll take a look at your card and he'll say, hey, this looks like it's in great shape. Or if there are any issues, he'll say like,
Hmm.
hey, these are the issues. Like he'll put it under a magnifying glass or loop or whatever. So I think that would be the best place to start, because you definitely want to get good input from, number one, people you trust, and then number two, people that have experience submitting. I can't tell you that this will literally be the first card that I've mailed in to PSA. But my friend Adam, took a look at the card, wipe down the surface with a microfiber cloth, like, obviously nothing that actually alters the card. But yeah, he just looked it over to make sure there's nothing, glaring that, might not make it worth it, like that would
Hmm.
prevent it from grading well, so that you don't send it in and miss out, like spend some money and don't get a good grade. So, obviously there are no guarantees with this one, but, I'd recommend, turning to somebody trustworthy that has a lot of experience submitting, because they'll be able to tell you, hey, this is what you might be able to expect. And the card looks good, take a chance. I would recommend starting out that way.
Yeah, I might take it up to Mel at Bel Air Sports Cards. Shout
Yeah.
out to him. He's pretty cool. I like that place with the card bar.
Yep,
Pretty
yep,
cool.
me too. Yeah, Mel's a great guy, great store. So yeah, if you know Mel, and Mel definitely has lots of bulk submissions all the time, and he's got a good eye for cards, and bottom line, he's a really nice guy, so he's going to tell it to you straight. So yeah,
Yeah,
I would recommend going that route for sure.
very cool. Any other cards you want to show off since our last show?
Let me see. Just another one that Adam Gertz, kind of prepared, and he took a look at for grading. But this is a Brian Ramos orange
Nice.
auto. Again, a little bit tough to see. But yeah, Ramos has been a prospect, for the White Sox organization, hitting for some nice power this year. So that one is another card that me and my friends bought, earlier this year, like 6 to 8 months ago. I picked up a few other cards. I just wanted to make sure to have the Superfractor kind of ready to show everyone. But I got a Seth Johnson base autograph. Got one in a trade once we acquired him, and then a couple Connor Norby autographs are like on the other side of the table, so I'm not going to grab that now. But yeah, I've been to be honest, I've been picking up more like Orioles prospects that have just been surging. So Connor Norby is one of those guys.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been playing really well in Bowie.
Yeah, and John Rhodes. I have like a purple sapphire of Rhodes, which is out of 10. I'm really pumped about that card, especially because Rhodes is an autograph only guy for the Orioles. So I'm sorry, Rhodes is a non-autograph guy. He only has,
Right.
So
chase the rainbow.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I might be doing a little bit of a Rhodes rainbow. But yeah, other than that, just the usual. I try to pick up refractors, colored refractors when possible. Obviously, they're usually going to be a good deal more expensive, especially the bigger the prospect. And then autographs whenever possible. I did go to the National for the first time, and that was a great experience. Just a crazy amount of tables and dealers, tons and tons of people. I think they announced that they had over 90,000 people throughout the 4 or 5 days.
That's
which
insane.
is pretty crazy. I will say that I was a little bit disappointed with the lack of Bowman that they had overall, but Bowman is a kind of specific market. But hopefully we can turn more people onto Bowman, because I think it's super fun to collect.
Yeah, and one card that I'm thinking about getting graded is Jackson Churio. I have one of the I think it's one of the refractor. It's not numbered, but it's one of the different versions of his first. And now that he's like one of the top prospects in the game, all of a sudden at like 18 years old, I'm like, yeah, maybe this is one to get graded. And then if he comes the next round on Acuna, it'd be nice to have. But
yeah, if it's depending on which parallel, but just as a case in point, Julio Rodriguez, his Mojo refractors, which are essentially a base refractor.
That's what it is, Mojo. Yeah.
Okay, Mojo. Yeah. So the J-Rod, Mojo PSA 10s have spiked like up to $300. Like when he was promoted, they were like 250, or around there. Then they went down a little bit, but now they're up at 300. And you could have bought a Julio Rodriguez like a couple months before he was promoted for like maybe 150 to 200. So because of that, I think that it actually would be a good idea to grade any good Mojo Chorios that you have that you think have a shot at getting.
Especially if Julio Rodriguez, he could win the Rookie of the Year. He's probably the favorite right now, so might even go higher once. What do you think awards, like if someone wins Rookie of the Year, MVP, does that usually spike their value a little bit?
It does a little bit, but I think it's temporary. And if anything, sometimes there's a spike right before the announcement. It's the whole,
you want to have it when it's announced.
yeah. And like people will offload it, but then, maybe the day of the announcement and the day after there would be a spike, but then honestly, prices kind of start going back down a little bit. And it's kind of, I think it's the sell the news phenomenon, like that you saw with Joe Burrow, and then Patrick Mahomes would have that too. Like, for example, when Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl, you actually wanted to sell his cards, right before the day of the Super Bowl,
right?
Because people are buying them in hopes that he wins. And then when he actually wins, you might be lucky that there's like a 1-day spike, and then it kind of goes down, which is a little counterintuitive. But
yeah.
So I think the same principle applies to Rookie of the Year and MVP. I know that personally last year I had a Jonathan India PSA 10. It was an Asia Mojo refractor, if I remember correctly. And those are more rare. They're only in Bowman Draft. Even though they're the same design as the regular Mojos, there are no Mojos in the US released Bowman Drafts. If that makes sense, there's just base refraction. Yeah. So yeah, I had an Asia refractor, Jonathan India, and I sold that right after he was announced as Rookie of the Year. And nice. I definitely got a spike with that. So yeah, cool. I think there's definitely something there. So I don't think it's a bad idea to hold on to Julio Rodriguez stuff if you've got it, and then maybe right after he's announced his Rookie of the Year, or hopefully Adley Rutschman wins it.
Yeah, I'd rather Adley win because
Yeah, for
top
sure.
two, he'll get his service time for the full year either way if he's first or second. So just let him win it. I
Yeah,
think it's going to come down to the wire though.
yeah, definitely.
But before we get out of here, is there anything you're looking forward to in the next month or so before our next show coming out?
So honestly, just seeing how the Orioles do in the playoffs, and you know
Mm-hmm.
the effects that it might have on some of those cards. Like if Gunnar Henderson is promoted tomorrow, and he comes out, on fire, like what does that do for his prices? If he struggles, like a lot of rookies do at first, how far do his prices go down? I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. I'm really interested to see if Jordan Westburg gets promoted at all. For a while, I thought that he was going to, come right up with Gunnar because they've been promoted together every step of the way. But the thing is, I don't think you promote you promote Jordan Westbrook, sorry, unless he plays every day. And I just
Right.
don't think that he would right now. So I don't know if he will get promoted at all. And then, when does DL Hall come back, as a reliever? Yeah, mostly just, any other, prospects that we might have coming up, like Tyler Wells, does he come back healthy? If the Orioles make the playoffs, is Grayson Rodriguez a possibility?
Right.
Maybe at the end of September or in the playoffs. Yeah, those are the things that I'm looking forward to the most. There's another Chantilly show in October, I believe. So if you're free, I'm going to try to find out the date. I think we
Okay.
started
Yeah.
talking about it a while ago, but that'd be a cool show for you to go to. I've been going to almost every of the past several Chantilly shows. I
Yeah.
think
I'd love that.
yeah, and I might be doing a trade night actually at a local brewery near me.
Cool.
So I'm gonna try to get some friends and local dealers. Mel might stop by to that. So yeah, those are the things I'm most looking forward to. How about you?
I'm just following the schedule, do my box breaks. I think Panini has a couple of their big products coming out in September, Panini Prism and Panini Chronicles. I actually like Chronicles quite a bit. So hopefully there's, as the Orioles tides turn, I think you start to see more cool Orioles cards come out in these big collections where, as before, it was like John Means, Cedric Mullins, Trey Mancini, maybe Ryan Mountcastle. Hopefully Adley Rutschman starts popping up at some point, and I don't know. I'll just follow the big releases, and I'll get into a box break and hopefully catch something good.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen, look doing your research on the different releases. Have you seen any updated dates on 2022 Bowman Chrome?
I believe it was October, the
Okay,
last I saw.
right.
So
Yeah, I know
I
it's
feel
been
like
good.
that's a little bit later than usual, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think if I remember correctly, I think last year's Bowman Chrome was sometime during the summer.
yeah, I do believe it was. So
Yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of delays in general. Um, and then also one little pointer or idea for anybody that really wants to get a hold of some sort of Jackson Holiday before 22 Bowman Draft. There's that Team USA set. And I know a couple people that picked up some boxes. I guess they come in packs, but a lot of the top draft picks have Team USA cards, and there's some autographs in there. So Jackson Holiday, if you're a pure collector and you just want to get your hands on something early, that might be cool. And then also there might be a little bit of an opportunity, if you open up a pack and pull a Jackson Holiday of some sort, people are going to want something of his before a 22 Bowman Draft. So my theory is that there's a little bit of a window to, maybe turn a little bit of a profit or turn it into some extra cards you might like. But something to keep an eye on. I might do it myself. I'm not sure, but it's intriguing, to maybe buy a couple Team USA cards.
yeah, we have our episode of On the Verge coming up tonight at 8 o'clock with the Baltimore Sun's Annie Koska. I might be hitting eBay up in a half an hour leading up to that, checking out
Nice.
some Jackson Holiday stuff. So
Yeah, that'd
awesome.
be cool.
Great stuff as usual, Fernando. I can't wait to come back again in a month or so and keep this show going and growing as we go along. Thanks for doing it
Absolutely.
again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Of course. And thanks for everyone who's watching or listening. So we'll talk to you next time.
Take care.